Today on the Locked On Blues podcast, the first 10 games of Nick Leddy. How well have they gone? Spoiler alert, pretty dang well. We're going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about Justin Faulk's torrent pace as he's been scoring like crazy lately, tons and tons of points. And then we're going to be previewing the matchup between the St. Louis Blues and Boston Bruins, a Stanley Cup rematch. Make sure you stay tuned. Lots of action on today's episode.
You're Locked On Blues, your daily podcast on the St. Louis Blues. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Locked On Blues podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, and your number one source for daily blues content. I'm your host, Josh Hyman, and I'm joined by my co-host, Bob the Tomato, or should I say, Thomas Welch. You got a little something up there, Tommy. Well, you got spend a weekend in Panama or something?
Close. Baseball heaven. Busch Stadium was calling my name on Saturday. It was freezing cold. The wind was whipping. So I was not concerned about getting a sunburn. Did not put sunscreen on, but we had bleacher seats, and the sun was beating down and said, "I don't care. I'm gonna bake you all day long." But yeah, it was a good time. We went to the Midwestern beforehand, got some brunch, mimosas, had some beers at the game, obviously happy hour, and then went to patios afterwards and Blarney Stone. So it was an experience to say the least. Might have been a little bit dehydrated, but we're good now.
There you go. By the way, today's episode is brought to you guys by Bet Online. Bet Online has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. Bet Online, where the game starts. But yeah, if you're not watching this episode on YouTube, you're missing out on feeling a lot of sympathy for Tommy, because this is one of the not one of the best sunburns I've seen. I don't know if that's gonna turn into a nice tan like this.
It's horrendous. I don't tan at all. There's no turning into a tan. It turns into skin cancer. That's what we're working with right now.
Yeah, so definitely check us out on YouTube if you're not, because you're missing out on some good laughs at poor Tommy's expense. But that's all right.
Yeah, give me all your best memes and make me feel better while I lay in bed and cry myself to sleep.
I don't even know if you'll be able to sleep with that, but you gotta put on one of those face masks or something.
Oh yeah, I put my aloe in the freezer, bro.
Oh, that's a move. That
feels great.
Yeah, it's gonna be a rough few days.
You know what else feels great? Doug Armstrong swindling again in a trade. Nick Leddy.
Yes, we got to get into it. So like I said, today's episode, segment 1 and probably segment 2, a little bit of a combination. It's going to be about the defense, specifically Nick Leddy and Justin Faulk. They spent some time playing together, but the thing that they both have in common is they've both been getting tons and tons of points lately. Second segment, we're talking about another defenseman that gets tons and tons of points in Torey Krug, because he might make his return to the lineup tomorrow night against Boston. And then in the third segment, we'll be talking about that matchup against the Boston Bruins, Stanley Cup final rematch. Have we played them since then because of COVID? I think we.
That's a good question. I'll do some research.
Because I know we haven't played them yet this season. We're playing twice in 2 weeks. There might have been a game or two that I'm not thinking of, but
I feel like we have.
I think we have. I think we probably played them before this league got shut down. Anyways, haven't played them a ton since then. Should be a good matchup. But anyways, first segment of the episode is dedicated to Nick Leddy, because Nick Leddy has 10 games under his belt with the St. Louis Blues. And he has 7 points in those 10 games, including 2 goals. He only had 1 goal the entire season before coming here. All of a sudden, looks like a new man, playing extremely well. And I gotta own up to it. I wasn't a fan of the trade at the start. I thought it was a bit of an overpayment. I thought it was going to be underwhelming. And now all of a sudden,
it felt like a consolation prize.
Yeah, it felt like a consolation prize for sure. But now the Blues are playing probably their best stretch of hockey of the season, in terms of all-around play. You know, Jordan Binnington got his first solid win maybe all season. You know, he's had a couple wins here and there, but this might have been the first real strong win for Jordan Binnington. And I don't want to say that's all thanks to Nick Leddy, and, combination Justin Faulk. But, man, if you had told me 10 episodes ago or 15 episodes ago, whatever, that Nick Leddy would be scoring at nearly a point per game pace in his first 10 games, I would have laughed at you. I'd be like, nah, no way, because then this trade would be a win. And we were all on the L train for that trade. I think we got to own up to it here, and I'm owning up to it. I was wrong.
Yeah, especially like taking into consideration the fact that you lose a guy like Oscar Sundqvist. Like, obviously he was kind of a shell of himself and the player that he was with the Blues after the injury, but that's just a tough blow for anyone in the locker room to deal with, and as well the fans to deal with, because Sonny was a fan favorite. But I think reactionary, you and I both were like, this is not great, like consolation prize with all the huge names that were available at the trade deadline and how much help this Blues defense needed. Don't feel like Nick Leddy is that guy, but I don't know. Maybe contributing factors has been amplifying the game of everyone around him, as well as inserting himself into the lineup instead of just solving all the problems by himself. And I feel like that's kind of what's happened here. Is Nick Leddy hasn't been the saving grace to come in and just fix every single problem that the Blues defense has had, but his presence being that back there as a veteran guy, as a puck-moving defenseman who can transition out of the zone with ease, as we've seen multiple times in the Blues note, he's kind of fixed a lot of problems incidentally or not directly. And I think for the Blues, that's massive, because there's no one player for the Blues defense that's going to be that number one defenseman really, and that's going to strong arm a team, this team, through the playoffs. It's going to have to be a cohesive unit, and it's going to have to be a cohesive effort for the Blues to make it through the gauntlet of the playoffs all the way back to the Stanley Cup Finals. And I think Nick Leddy's done fantastic job so far of being a veteran presence, being a guy with playoff experience to come in the room and add to a Blues defense that has a lot of veterans on it and has a lot of guys that have Stanley Cup experience as well. So, yeah, I like the chemistry there. I like the fit. Obviously, hindsight's 2020, but it's worked out great for the Blues so far, and the stats back it up.
Yeah, absolutely. And now you might have a bit of a tough question to answer of where does Torey Krug fit into this lineup when he comes back, because Nick Leddy and Justin Faulk have looked pretty strong when they've played together. I know Nick Leddy spent a bit of time bounced up and down the lineup. He spent some time with Parayko as well. So second segment, we're going to be answering the question, where does Torey Krug fit in the lineup if and when he comes back tomorrow night against the Boston Bruins? Make sure you stay tuned for that. But first, I want to tell you guys about one of our newer sponsors, and that is Athletic Greens. Now, like I talk about this all the time, whether it's like a meal prep service or when we're talking about Athletic Greens. Being a college student, I never have time to make full meals, and it leads me to kind of eating like crap a lot of times. I'll just make ramen or make something quickly. But one thing I've discovered that is really, really convenient is Athletic Greens. Is you just drop a little bit in your water, and you got tons of good vitamins to keep you going throughout the day. With one delicious scoop of AG1, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help start your day right. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, and aging. All of those important things. Plus, Athletic Green has over 7,000 five-star reviews, and they're recommended by professional athletes and trusted by leading health experts such as Tim Ferriss and Michael Gervais. So tons and tons of research to back it up, tons of support behind it. And the best part is they're a climate neutral certified company. In 2020, AG purchased carbon credits that support projects protecting old growth rainforests. For every purchase, they donate to tons of organizations helping to get nutritious food in need, including No Kid Hungry here in the U.S. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NHL Network. That is athleticgreens.com/NHL Network to take ownership over your health. And we will be right back with the second segment of today's episode. All right, Tommy. So we talked a little bit about Nick Leddy, and I do want to talk about Justin Faulk, but I feel like a good way to sort of transition that conversation into another important bit of news is the fact that Torey Krug might be returning a little bit sooner than expected, and he may do so against the Boston Bruins. Now, that's what I was thinking. I think this would be Torey Krug's first matchup against the Bruins, not the Blues' first matchup.
That sounds right.
Yeah, that's got a little cross on that one. But yeah, I believe this will be Torey Krug's first time playing against the Boston Bruins since he came here and joined the Blues. So that being said, with how well Nick Leddy has been playing, with how well Justin Faulk has been playing, and with how well Torey Krug and Justin Faulk played together when they were on the same pairing, but Faulk wasn't producing as much offensively, Krug was. Do you take the route of putting things back to where they used to be and pairing up Krug and Faulk, or do you maybe see what Krug can do on that quote unquote first pairing and let Leddy and Faulk continue to put up point per game?
Yeah, so here's the problem that you're gonna kind of run into here is like Nick Leddy's playing amazing, right? Obviously, like dude's putting up an absurd amount of points. Torey Krug obviously wants to be in the lineup against his former team. Like, why wouldn't you? Can be playing in front of a lot of friends and family that might live in Boston or be around the area and want to come watch him play. So he's not going to bump Nick Leddy out of a spot in the lineup, right? So it's going to be Marco Scandella or Rosen or Mikkola or one of the guys like that. Obviously, Mikkola was in a couple games ago, didn't look very good. So they yoinked him out and switched up the lineup there. But, I mean, do you take out Marco Scandella, Josh, just because he's been a scapegoat for the majority of the season? Because the last probably 6 or 7 games, Scandella has looked strong, in my opinion. Like, and not just like, oh, like, well, he still kind of sucks, but like he's doing good for him. Like he's looked like the defenseman that we saw with Colton Parayko and go on that win streak right when we got him in the trade. So like, I don't know if that's the guy you pull out. I think maybe like Cale Rosen could be the guy that you pull out, but
I mean, could it be?
That being said, Rosen's been playing good too.
The acquisition of Nick Leddy sort of was the last piece the Blues needed for their defensive scheme to work, because we're talking about like, oh yeah, this guy's been playing great the last 10 games, and this guy's been playing great the last 10 games. And 2 episodes ago, I talked about Colton Parayko's last 15 games been playing great. There's a little bit of a coincidence here that ever since maybe a little before Nick Leddy, but pretty much ever since Nick Leddy has joined the team or whatever, every one of the Blues defense is playing well.
And I will. Here's also something, a contributing factor that might have to do with it is since Nick Leddy has arrived, we've seen a lot less of Mikkola. And that's not to say that Mikkola has been horrible this season. I mean, the dude was on the first pairing for a lot of this season. But in the role that he was in, or maybe his inconsistency, like, is the subtraction of Mikkola and the addition of Nick Leddy, like you said, the magic concoction that will lead this Blues team back to the Stanley Cup Finals.
Because it's so like we've spent so much time criticizing the defense, and this is definitely. I mean, this is not only is this like one of the best stretches of Blues hockey that we've seen this season, but also just like the topics of these episodes. We have spent so much time talking about praising the defenseman and moving around from guy to guy. Like I talked about Parayko on my solo about last week. We're talking about Nick Leddy today. We're talking about Justin Faulk today. We're talking about Marco Scandella today. You talked about Cal Rosen a few episodes back. It's like all of a sudden something's clicked, and it could just be a matter of like the scheme finally sort of figuring itself out, and therefore every single player kind of knows their role a little bit more. And maybe Nick Leddy was the missing piece. You could not to discount, take away from Nick Leddy, but you could have really brought in any player that could fill the Nick Leddy role, like the puck mover, the breakout defenseman. Like maybe that's what all the Blues defense need. It could have been Cale Makar, or it could have been, someone who plays beer league hockey that can move the puck up and down the ice. They just needed someone to fill that role. And Nick Leddy filling that role maybe was a bit of an oversight from us initially on how important he would be for this Blues defense, because it really feels like it's the impact has been a ripple effect for the rest of the defense.
Yeah, and I think you were kind of like touching on it a little bit, but we're just going to go full in now. Like the story these last couple of games on this win streak has been like the offensive output for the St. Louis Blues, right? Like, I mean, they're just decimating guys left and right. It was like 6-1 against the Islanders, and then a very impressive win against the Minnesota Wild too, who pretty was above us in the standings.
Yeah, and pretty much guaranteed to be our first round matchup unless some team goes on a crazy run or crazy drought. So
exactly, but I feel like the talk, and obviously like with Robert Thomas playing the way that he is, like it's easy for people to just kind of gravitate to the offense and be like, "Wow, dude, these guys are playing out of their mind." Like Jordan Kyrie's doesn't look like the first half of the season Jordan Kyrou, and he's still going out and getting 2 assists. I mean, like these guys are just as talented as they come. But I think we need to give more attention to the defense too, because like obviously the goalies have been playing great, and Binnington had fantastic performance as well. But I think the defense has come a long way from where it was before the trade deadline to where it is now, and the identity and the chemistry that they're working with now, and Nick Leddy, and like you said, all these moving parts that almost seemed like a throwback to Ken Hitchcock days of like independent contractors who didn't really mesh well, and like had a bunch of guys like trying to play their game and not play like the schematic game, and like it really does feel like Nick Leddy could be the missing piece in that puzzle and get the Blues back to the promised land.
Yeah, absolutely. And tell you what, Tommy, the Blues are going to have a pretty dang big test tomorrow night against the Boston Bruins. Anytime you play an Eastern Conference team, it's a big test. You don't have as much film, you don't have as much experience. But when you play one as good as the Boston Bruins, especially with how good the Bruins have been playing lately, they've been maybe the best team in the NHL since the trade deadline.
I'd say so.
Yeah, it's going to be in the Garden. I guess that's a very Boston thing to say. In TD Garden, in their home
In
arena.
the Garden.
Yeah, it's
where you park your car in the yard.
Oh God, no! There's no yard outside the Garden, Tommy. It's all just industrial streets.
It's W's. Park your car in the yard. Right?
Listen, my people are being slandered. We don't all sound like that.
Hey, I will say though, like, obviously, I'm not a huge betting man, but I'd like to get into it a little bit. And I will say that I don't want to bet on the St. Louis Blues, because then if they lose, it's a
double heartbreak.
It's 0-2, and I don't know personally if I can handle that and a sunburn at the same time. So I
think it's gonna last that long.
No, I don't know, man. This thing is brutal. But I would probably hedge my bets. I think a good team to bet on would be the Boston Bruins, because nobody's really talking about them. But They did win. I feel like they won the trade deadline. They got Lindholm. The defense is amazing with McAvoy and all those guys back there. And they've also obviously got Pasta, Marchand, and Bergeron is like just playing out of his mind for a defensive forward. And he's like, we know he's the best in the game. He's perennial like Selke winner, and he's just exceeding those expectations. So, and Swayman, what can you say about the young guy too? Like, he could very easily lead this team all the way to the Stanley Cup Finals and win the whole shebang. So,
yeah,
if I was a betting man, which I might be with Bet Online, I'd probably throw some money down on the Boston Bruins to win the whole thing.
Yeah,
still hoping that the Blues win.
Not to get on the Bruins bandwagon too much, but Tommy and I were checking out the odds before, and they're sitting at plus 1,500. Blues are at plus 2,500, but again, that double heartbreak. So whether you're willing to put your money with your home team like the Blues, or you're trying to maybe take a flyer on a team you think might be a sleeper agent and get you some quick cash, you got to check out betonline.net, because BetOnline has you covered for all your betting stats and sports info. Find all the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's basketball playoffs and the start of the MLB season. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. And then you might work up an appetite from all that betting. You know, you're stressing during the game, so you need something quick to munch on. You got to check out Built Bar. Built Bars are so delicious, so tasty. We've talked about them all the time on this podcast. They're covered in 100% real chocolate. Even the Built Puffs, which are protein-infused marshmallows. That's amazing. They're so delicious. But either way, whatever you get in a regular Built Bar or a Built Puff, they're covered in 100% real chocolate. They're low-calorie, high protein. You can replace your candy bars with these. They are better. A typical candy bar can be anywhere from 200 to 300 calories. But if you go to Built.com and scroll down to the macros chart, you'll be blown away. Most Built Bars contain 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. They have so many delicious flavors, and they're adding new ones all the time. So go to Built.com and check them out. And while you're there, you can use promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCKED15. You'll get 15% off at Built.com. All right, Tommy. One final segment on today's episode, and it is a game preview. The St. Louis Blues take on the Boston Bruins. And fun little tweet here. Torey Krug is hanging out with his former teammate and David Pastrnak. So bit of a bittersweet reunion for him, I'm sure. But that could be the big storyline, Tommy, is Torey Krug's return to the lineup against his former team in the Boston Bruins. So what do you need to see tomorrow out of the St. Louis Blues? What will it take to beat a red-hot Bruins team? And what could Torey Krug add if he does return to the lineup?
Well, I think another fun narrative could potentially be Trent Frederick playing against his favorite team growing up, as he's a St. Louis boy. But I think the biggest thing for the Blues to be successful against the Bruins is you got to rely on that offense, because the Bruins defense, like I was talking about, I mean, you bring in a guy and you got Charlie McAvoy already there. Like, I mean, this defense is truly one of the best in the league with the additions that they've made. So I think you got to rely on your offense here. And obviously, like, the defense has to go out and do their thing too. And whoever's in net has to do their thing as well. But I think the Blues could come out and play the best defense they've had all year, and the Bruins could still manage to score like 3 or 4 goals on them. It's just, it's the nature of the beast. It's a playoff team over there. They're high caliber goal scorers. So I think you're going to have to lean on your offense, lean on your depth. And I think the Blues are firing on all cylinders right now when it comes to that department. So it's definitely going to be a very interesting game, and one that I will not bet on because I'm not really sure which way it's going to go.
Yeah, I mean, like I was saying before, anytime you have a interconference matchup in the regular season, it's going to be a little different from your typical, division rivalry game, because you play teams in your division. You get to April, usually you've played a team 3 times, and this is your last time playing them. So you got tons of film to study, tons of previous examples to go over. The Bruins, they haven't played them at all this season. They're playing them twice this week, or twice in the next 7 days, I should say. So it's been a while since they've played. Been a long time since the Blues and Bruins have matched up. And the Bruins are, like we've been saying, the hottest team probably since the trade deadline, and they don't really have any sort of weakness. Like you were saying, Tommy, maybe the scoring depth, you could argue, is a bit of a weakness for them, if you had to find one. But then again, they kind of are top heavy, and when the top of your offense is led by Patrice Bergeron, Brad Marchand, and David Pastrnak, you can kind of rely on those guys to get a lot of your scoring done. Not to mention Taylor Hall in there as well, as having a pretty dang good season. So even you can't rely on their lack of scoring depth to be apparent tomorrow, because they could very well get multi-goal games from players that aren't named Patrice Bergeron, David Pastrnak, and Brad Marchand. So you got to be on your toes the whole game if you're the Blues defense. And then once you get the puck out of your zone, you're dealing with that Bruins defense of Charlie McAvoy, one of the best young defensive defensemen in the NHL. Hampus Lindholm, who has fit in perfectly, and then Jeremy Swayman, who has had a spectacular season as well. So the Blues have their work cut out for them. I mean, it really is just going to be sort of like a playoff environment. Like, you can't game plan for a team like the Bruins. You can't be like, oh, we'll just beat them no, you just have to play 60 minutes of the best hockey you can play. And like you said, Tommy, even if they might not even win if you do that. That's what happens when you get 2 teams of this caliber meeting up. And yes, I am putting the Blues along with the Bruins in that caliber, at least as of late. So you got to just stick to your game if you're the St. Louis Blues. You can't get intimidated or frustrated by the Bruins, because I feel like that has the potential to happen with their tenacious forechecking and all that stuff. So yeah, maybe it's almost like the opposite of not getting arrogant. You gotta stay confident and not get frustrated. That being said, Tommy, who is your pick for locked on player of the game? Because I think there are plenty of different routes you could go.
I think so too. I think, man, I really think, like, even though there's years gone by, like, still, like, those Stanley Cup finals, like, a loss to the St. Louis Blues for the Boston Bruins after the season that they had, it's going to leave a sour taste in your mouth, to say the least, right? So I fully expect both teams to come out and play, like, playoff atmosphere, like, best of their capabilities. Like, it's going to get dirty. It's going to get grimy. There's going to be some scrums after the whistles. Brad Marchand might lick somebody. Like, who knows, right? And so I think because of that, And because of the history that's there and the role that he played in the Stanley Cup playoffs in 2019, and he's been hot since the trade deadline. Not as hot as Robert Thomas, but he has been hot. I'm going to take David Perron as the edge setter, as getting under a guy's skin, but also, hey, if I'm on the power play and you leave me open, I'm putting it in the back of the net too. So I'm going to take David Perron. I don't know why. It just feels like every time there's a game where I feel like scrums are going to break out and people are going to get the dirty mitts in their face, I'm like, you know what? You know who's going to be great in this game? David Perron every time. So I'm going with him for my locked on player of the game.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good choice. I have 2 picks. One of them is kind of a pick that won't come to fruition, and I'll explain that. And another one is the really obvious pick that we've been kind of alluding to all episode. But first guy that I would love to see have the chance to be the locked on player of the game is Jordan Binnington. I don't think he's going to get the start based on the practice lines today. But Jordan Binnington played the best hockey game of his career in the arena that the Blues are going to be playing in tomorrow. So if anyone knows how to respond to a rowdy Boston crowd, it's Jordan Binnington. And the last time he played in that arena, the game ended with him hoisting a Stanley Cup. Maybe
that would be a cool story.
I don't know for sure. There might have been
back
another
in
game
there.
in between there. But one of the last times he played in that arena, he hoisted a Stanley Cup. So I don't think he's going to get the start, but if he does, I think it'd be a perfect opportunity for him to continue to build up some momentum. Because I think that 2019 Jordan Binnington is better than 2022 Ville Husso.
I agree.
But 2022 Ville Husso is better than 2022 Jordan Binnington.
As of right now. So if you want to, go for the high ceiling, you start Jordan Binnington. But okay, my pick for locked on player of the game is Torey Krug. I know, easy pick, but come on. I like that though.
It's the narrative is so strong. He loves those guys. He just posted a picture on Twitter or on his Instagram story with David Pastrnak. He's got that. You got the fire that he plays with. As much as I hate to use this as a praise of Torey Krug, but that hit on Robert Thomas with the helmet off just goes to show how loved he probably was in that locker room. But that being said, there's nothing you love more. And I know you can relate to this when you grew up playing sports. You'd play some other team out of town, you wouldn't care. But you play a team with like 4 of your best friends on it. Oh my God. It's over. It's over. You're taking that intensity up to 1,000. So for that reason, I think Torey Krug is going to have a little bit of extra motivation, not to mention being out of the lineup for as long as he has been with the season that he's been having. Torey Krug by a million, locked on player of the game. Easy choice.
I like that a lot, Josh. That's a great pick. Because I know you said it's an easy pick, but I really don't think it's that easy. Because, like you said, he's been out of the lineup for a hot minute.
He might not even play. I might not have.
Exactly.
I might not have any locked on players of the game tomorrow.
Yeah, you got.
I made two choices.
They could both be out of the lineup. So that's a bold. That's a bold strategy. I respect that. I love the dark horse picks. You know how.
But if they both play, I get credit for both of them.
Okay, deal. I'm down with
that. You hear that, J-Tap? You still keeping tabs?
He's got the tally going.
I think he still does.
Okay.
I think he still does.
That'd be sick.
But yeah, that being said, it's going to be a fun matchup. It's going to be a stressful matchup. And we should, good thing, we should finally have a post-game episode out. We haven't been doing those lately because the Blues have been playing these late games, and neither Tommy or I wants to be recorded until midnight. But East Coast swing, Blues are going to be playing some 7 o'clock games, so it'll be a lot easier for us to, or 7 o'clock my time, I should say. 6 o'clock your time. Am I doing that right? Yeah.
6 o'clock most people's time that are watching this.
Yeah.
You're just special.
Eastern Conference elite. I get out of work before you do, and I get to wake up after you. Ha ha. Anyways, but yeah, so we should have an episode out after the game tomorrow night, as well as potentially a Locked On Now, depending on how it goes. So lots of content coming your way this week. Make sure you hit that follow or subscribe button on whatever podcast platform you're listening to us on. That way you never miss a new upload. Subscribe to us on YouTube at Locked On Blues. Like I always say, we've been having tons of fun doing that. Growing slowly but surely, almost at 200 subscribers there. So leave a comment on all of those new videos. We usually like to engage with them, maybe ask a question or two to get some conversation going. Follow us on all of our socials, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok at Locked On Blues. You can follow me on Twitter at Josh Hyman NHL. Follow Tommy at TWelcher15. Thanks so much for listening. And as always, let's go Blues.